Call the meeting to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I invite you to join us. Roll call.
Kolpak? Here. Pepcorn?
Here.
Preston? Here. Strand?
Here.
Mahoney?
Here. Forestry. The emerald ash borer has been confirmed in Moorhead. The invasive beetle has spread to 36 states, killing millions of ash trees. In preparation for EAB's arrival, Fargo Forestry Division has proactively replaced more than 3,600 boulevard ash trees since 2012, reducing the ash population to less than 24% of total inventory. To reduce the risk of spreading an EAB, the residents should not move firewood, which is the fastest method of spreading the pest. If you have ash trees, consider a plan for treatment, which could be less costly than removal, and consider replacement with non-ash species. Or if you have an ash tree on a boulevard adjacent to your property, call forestry to let them know you would like it removed and replaced, which will be done free of charge. The seed library has returned for spring of 2023, where the public can pick up and try out some seeds for free. There are a variety of vegetable, herb, and flower seeds available for the public while supplies last at the Main and the Carlson libraries. Tech help services are now available for residents at Carlson Library on Tuesdays from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Librarians can help residents with technology issues, including tablets, laptops, e-readers, and smartphones, and appointments are required. George Holy, an archaeologist and retired MSU professor, will visit the main library on March 14th to present Uncovering Pieces of the Past. He will explain the practice of archaeology and provide hands-on activity for the kids. Katie, you got something up there on the screen?
The Cask Clay Food Partners.
Oh, it's not the video. Could be a
The
picture.
Cask Clay Food Partners.
Would you have a picture for me? Sorry, it wasn't video time, it's picture time.
Let's do this and then video.
Huh?
Let's do video and then picture.
Okay, do we have the picture at the end? Okay. 12 years ago, members from 7 jurisdictions, the Fargo-Moorhead area, and local public health area at each side of the river came together to create the Cask Clay Food Partners, an organization that advocates for all members of the communities to have safe, nutritious, affordable, and culturally based food as part of the region's food system. Here's more on who they are and how they serve a region.
This initially came together about 12 years ago. It was started by local public health and extension from both sides of the Red River. Our food system is everything entailed in getting food from the ground to our dinner plates. So that includes looking at how food is grown, where food is being grown, if the right kind of food is being grown for our community, how is that food being distributed, where is it being sold, how is it being marketed, and then finally, do people know how to prepare foods that are healthy?
Access to healthy food is terrifically important, and that feeds into a healthy lifestyle, being healthy for the rest of your life. You can't have a healthy community if you've got a community that has people that aren't secure with food sources. City Hall, city employees exist to provide services to the community. It doesn't mean just streets and water and sewer and all of those things. It means helping the community to be as healthy as they can. When you look at the foundation of being healthy, safety and security is number one, and food is part of that.
Food is foundational to public health in a number of ways. Cooking with your family, gardening, being outside, having that stronger connection with where our food comes from, not only improves our dietary health, but it helps us feel more socially connected to one another in the community. I believe that the Cask Clay Food Partners and this kind of values-driven network where people come together to really work on the edges and look at who's most marginalized by our current food system and what is the responsibility that all of us have to change that. So really, the Cass Clay Food Partners, we are looking at that full gamut of practices, policies, of businesses, of having access to gardening spaces, and everything in between.
So the picture I think she's going to bring up here, I received a message from Frisco Mayor Jeff Cheney, and today they cut the ribbon for their new state-of-the-art library in Frisco, Texas. The creative team thought of every detail and thought you would enjoy how Fargo has been part of Frisco's history and will be forever memorialized in their new library. So I think if she has it here. So what you see is Fargo has the big logo up there because we're always considered bringing South Fargo to Frisco for all the championships we've had. So it's nice that they thought of us. Is there a motion to approve the order of the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the February 21st regular meeting and the February 28th, 2023 special meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 25?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Kolpak? Aye. Preston?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. President's comments this time. We have 5 speakers. Mars Ness Ludwig is first. Mars Ness Ludwig. Not virtual as well, Katie? This, no? Okay. Kristen Nelson.
Mayor, so
He can
I'm
go
sorry.
first because I was a bit delayed due to some personal things going on, so he can speak first if that's all right.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Okay. Kristen, you want to start then? Kristen?
there she is right there.
There.
Oh, okay, there we go. Mars Ness Ludwig.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I have a cold, so bear with me. My name is Kristen Nelson. My pronouns are she, her. I am the founder of Project Ray. My organization was established in 2020 and works with queer and gender nonconforming youth ages 3 to 14 by providing support, resources, and community. I stand here today to speak for those that cannot be here today. People who are afraid to stand up and speak for those who are unable to stand up and speak. The state legislature has taken up a culture war against queer people, a war being led by just a few, but will have huge and lasting impacts on our state. Fargo is the home of North Dakota State University, among other large and small colleges and universities. North Dakota State welcomed over 12,000 students this last year. Each fall, Fargo enjoys an economic boom provided by these students and their families. College students get jobs, spend money, and promote their promote their time in North Dakota. Now imagine a subset of these students feeling isolated, alienated, and fearful to even exist in Fargo. Their identity puts them in danger if they do not feel safe to go out and do the things they enjoy. Will these kids continue to reside here when MSUM is just across the river, and other schools in Minnesota exist who are much more welcoming than North Dakota. I doubt it. These policies are bad for Fargo, bad for our state, and harmful for our youth. We urge this body to make a statement in support of the queer residents of Fargo, and as such, make a statement of what the potential economic impacts this legislation will have on our city and our state. Thank you.
Mars?
Hello, my name is Mars. I'm a transgender activist, and I'm up here to talk about and ask that the Fargo PD adds gender identity to the checklist on the forms used for reporting hate crime incidents and discrimination. In May 2022, there was a meeting with Officer Andrea Knoll, and it was assured that it would be added, but it was never happened. The form is not easy to find on the website, and as well as not being easy to find, nationality and national origin are both on the existing form, and I suggest that we swap one with gender identity because there are hate crimes that happen to transgender individuals in North Dakota, specifically in Fargo, and I think it is very pertinent and important that this be recognized on the form because this is happened and will happen again.
Ryan Wilgos?
Hi, it's pronounced Rin.
Sorry.
I'm a transgender woman. I went through all the state laws to be able to change my gender. And at this point, it seems like the state is not willing to recognize their own laws in allowing somebody to legally transition. And that's so appalling. They want to write us out of the Century Code. The other laws that are being passed around across the United States, they're duplicates. They're not even original thoughts from people in North Dakota. You guys have the power. Whether it changes the outcome or not is irrelevant. You guys have the power to stand up to the legislature and say this is wrong. We don't agree with this. And at least stand on the right side of humanity and history in this one. Because the statements are going to be profound and they're going to make a difference to the people that live here. The outcomes of these bills, they're not looking ahead. You're going to lose businesses. You're going to lose medical providers. You're going to lose mental health professionals. I know for a fact that there's over 4,000 children in the state of North Dakota that are going to be put at higher risk because they're not going to be able to treat any new cases of gender dysphoria in the state. But they are going to treat existing cases. So if they think it's so wrong and the science doesn't back the treatments, then why are they going to allow the treatments to continue? That's a point that never gets talked about. And the other thing that's absolutely terrifying with some of these bills is the drag show bill. The way that that's worded, it's completely transparent that they just want us to disappear from public society. They even said that during the CPAC conference on Saturday. That is their ultimate goal. That's why there's a concerted effort across this entire country to pass the same bills with the same exact wording and the same wording that showed up in the 1990s when everybody was protesting somebody being gay and being in public or getting married and being in public. And that stems from 1930s Germany propaganda. It's so horrifically evil. And people that refuse to see it, I couldn't live with that blissful ignorance. It doesn't make any sense. It's wrong. And I really wish the people of this council will tell the state that what they're doing is wrong. Thank you.
Travis Hennon?
Hi there. My name is Travis Heinen, pronouns he, him, and I am here to talk about the so-called drag bill. It was originally introduced as House Bill 1333, and it is incredibly vaguely worded. They refer to drag as simply male and female impersonators. Well, what does this mean? and who decides whether this is sufficiently adult for the purpose of arresting someone. And I'm here to ask that the Fargo PD announce what they intend to do should this be passed, in terms of whether they would consider, say, somebody who is transgender dancing in public too much. Would they consider somebody who is not even trans but just going to Comic-Con, which is part of our tourism? If they were dressing up as a character of the opposite gender, would that be too much? And I feel that that broadness and uncertainty is problematic, not just for folks living here who happen to be transgender, but people who may so much as visit here for a convention. We stand to lose a lot of tourism dollars, as well as college students who recognize that their hobbies even could put them at risk. Would they, so much as if they did not look feminine or masculine enough, be given trouble for showing up at the grocery store if they decided to? And it's concerning how broad this is. Sorry, public speaking is not my thing, but I felt that I needed to at least try.
Cody Schuler.
Good evening, Mayor Mahoney and commissioners. My name is Cody Schuler, pronouns he, him. I'm a proud Fargo resident and the North Dakota Advocacy Manager for the American Civil Liberties Union. The Fargo City Commission must firmly act to condemn the North Dakota legislature's assault on the LGBTQ plus and Two-Spirit citizens, especially the transgender community. More than 20 bills have been sponsored, making North Dakota one of the leading states in the nation at the moment in anti-LGBTQ plus legislation. For decades, Fargo has been a pioneering community in North Dakota for open, accepting, and safe spaces, including being home to the state's oldest and largest Pride celebration. Every day, LGBTQ plus people contribute to Fargo and are part of what makes this a wonderful place to live by teaching in our schools, providing healthcare, serving food and drink, leading faith communities, serving and protecting as law enforcement, and working hard to make city government run. Currently, legislators are engaging in the misinformation and fear of culture wars instead of staying focused on such things as affordable childcare, education, and behavioral health, all of the things that are needed to address workforce shortages, as well as making a good life here in North Dakota. The legislation seeks to impose, the legislation seek to impose select political, religious, and moral values on all citizens, whether they hold the same beliefs or not. Furthermore, many of these bills are state government overreach, infringing on local control and your ability to fulfill your elected duty to govern this city. Our legislators need to understand how harmful these bills are to real people. As hard as they try, they cannot legislate LGBTQ plus people, again, particularly transgender people, out of existence. Too often, elected officials overlook the queer community's concerns. That is why it is so important for the Fargo City Commission to take an opportunity to speak up and stand up for people who are your constituents and send a loud and clear message to Bismarck that there is no room for intolerance or hate in this state. Please join with the LGBTQ community and send a resounding message that this is our home too, and we're not going anywhere.
Thank you, everybody. We're going to go to public hearings now at this point. The plat of the Dakota Air Parts Edition. on 2505 39 and a half Avenue North, 3910 and 420 25th Street North. Donald Crust to explain.
Good evening, Commissioners. Donald Kress with the Department of Planning and Development. Our one planning item here tonight, as the mayor has stated, is the Dakota Air Parts Addition. This is located here, 25th Street North, hang on here, 39th and a half Avenue North, of course, Hector Airport right here, 40th Avenue North right here. The property, this was obviously taken a couple of months ago in early November, is developed with some storage areas, and there is one residence that will remain, and it looks about the same with a couple of feet of snow on it here. These were taken on Friday. The zoning of the property is LI, Limited Industrial, no zone change is proposed. The plat will re-subdivide the existing DDK addition into a different three-lot configuration. It will vacate a couple of easements here and will also dedicate some right-of-way for 25th Street North, which is what makes it a major plat. Also, on this project here, Commissioners, since it was close proximity to the airport, your packet includes an airport proximity agreement, which is a standard agreement between the City of Fargo and property owners who are within the airport sphere there, that the property owners acknowledge the presence of the airport. This is a standard agreement that approval of that is part of the condition of the subdivision. The applicant's version of this has been signed. They mailed it today, so we'll be getting that final version from them in a couple of days. The project representative, Nate Volman for Goldmark Design and Development, representing Mako Leasing, the property owner, is with us this evening and may wish to address the commission. The Planning Commission's recommendation is stated in your staff report and shown on the screen. That concludes staff's presentation. Thank you, Commissioners.
Is there anyone in the public who wishes to speak to this zoning? Anybody wishing to speak? If not, I close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, move the recommended motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston?
Aye.
Kolpak? Aye. Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
I failed. We did have an executive session, and we did have a motion that came out of that executive session. I need to address it now. Do I have a motion to approve the settlement?
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion. I move that the settlement participation forms for Teva and Allergan and Walmart, Walgreens and CVS be approved as presented, and to authorize the mayor to execute the same for filing with the court.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Strand?
Yes.
Preston?
Aye.
Kolpak? Aye. Pepcorn?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. Now we'll go to Steve Sprague. Sorry. Sewer repair assessments for 2022. Steve Sprague to speak.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Tonight we have the sewer repair assessments for the 2022 year. We had a total of 186 participants in this year's assessment, with a total dollar amount being assessed at $2,627,000. And there are city funds through our policy that get contributed to some of the assessments if the sewer repair makes a new connection at the main, and that dollar amount totaled $891,000. We did not publish the list this year. What we did was just publish the notice of hearing and then sent individual assessment notices to the property owners. If you do want to see the list of property owners, I certainly can provide that for you.
Is there anyone here present who wishes to speak about their sewer repair assessment? Anybody wishing to speak? Not, we'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Kolpak? Aye. Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Recommendations for federal aid transportation project application, urban grant program year 2025, and urban regional roadway program year 2027. Jeremy Gordon to explain.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. I'm here again to talk about federal grant applications. So just before I get into this, typically all this is done in October, November, December. That's why I've come a couple iterations to you guys, to you folks. So this should do it for the for the season. So the two grant programs that we're looking to submit project applications for One falls under the urban grant program, specifically for the downtowns. The other one is for our streets that are also our state highways. So the urban grant program, that's looking for projects in 2025, and the urban regional is for 2027. And here's a graphic of that area. So the urban regional would be 52nd Avenue South, anything highlighted in yellow. 52nd Avenue South, University Drive, then University Drive and 10th Street up to 19th Avenue, in 19th Avenue by the airport, then Main Avenue and 12th Avenue North. So these projects come from our long-range transportation plan. Here, the 8 plan goals are highlighted there. We're working towards improving as many as we can with each project. So the proposed one project we have for the urban grant program, I think this is pretty popular, replacing the brick pavers that are within Broadway, the street itself, and then upgrading the ADA curb ramps. So this would take place between Main Avenue and 6th Avenue North. Just want to be clear, the bricks that would be replaced are the ones in the street that get driven over by vehicles, not the ones on the sidewalks. Those are in pretty good shape, relatively speaking. The project cost, $2.9 million. We'd be asking for $2.3 million federal and a little less than $600,000 in local funds. So the MetroCog goals here would be improving walking and biking and maintaining good transportation infrastructure. So just as an example, this is I think from this must be 4th Avenue North. So there's the square in the middle on its side, and then the 4 crosswalks. So those are the bricks that we're talking about. And then the red dots would be the curb ramps, ADA detectable warning panels would be replaced. So that's typically what we'd tear up within each of the intersections. So that's the urban grant pot. The urban regional, we've got 2 projects lined up. The first one will be pretty plain Jane concrete spot repair project on Main Avenue from 25th Street to 45th Street. That's 19 years old, so it's about the perfect time to start doing some rehab on concrete pavement. So the total cost on this is $16.1 million. It's about $8 million per mile, plus or minus. And the breakdown in funding would be about $13 million Fed, 1.6 million state, and 1.6 million local. And this is a pretty straightforward project, but it is definitely needed. And the second urban regional would be full reconstruction of South University from 13th Avenue down to 18th Avenue. It's about 3,500 feet, and the construction cost is about $31 million. So we'd be asking for $18 million federal, $2.2 million state, and then the rest would be on us. 10.7 million. We'd like to improve quite a few things in that project. We'd like to get a shared use path on the west side there. This is a transit route, so it would be nice to do something for the folks using transit. And then this pavement is about pushing 60 years old. It's been overlaid a couple times with asphalt. It's just a quick graphic here. Here's what we're talking about. Here's some stretches. And then there's the final stretch, 17th down to 18th. So the recommended motion is to approve all 3 of these grant applications, move it on to MetroCog, and then into the DOT.
Jeremy, sometimes you do estimates of what it's going to cost. Is this with inflationary estimates?
Yes, yep.
And for Brenda, is this in our CIP plans going forward?
Well, I could say these are just applications, like we are asking for the funding.
It would have to be mixed into our CIP if we get them.
Oh, in future years, yeah.
Okay.
These are projects that we know are in our future. And so if we can get some federal funds to help infuse in those projects, I think that would be a very proactive way to get those projects moving forward.
Do we have a plan for the businesses on Main? So some businesses, do they have to be moved or taken out because of that project or no?
The projects on Main is concrete that we in my career here, we did do that reconstruction project, but you can see there's some joint separation happening. We have some concrete spot repair needs. And so that is the time to go in there and to extend that life of that concrete.
This is the mile west of where we're planning to fully reconstruct.
Okay.
So it would be
And you
from
were
25th
responsible as,
Street to
you were
45th.
responsible as an engineer at one time to put some of this in, didn't you, Brenda? You have one bump that's there that you remember?
No, that's on a different avenue, a mile to the south.
Okay, thank you.
That was on 13th Avenue, and that's gone.
Okay.
Jeremy Enquist took care of that this last summer, so.
Thank you. Any questions by the commissioners? Do you have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question, if I could.
Okay. Commissioner Preston.
So I know that the project that was presented to the neighborhood on South University a few years back didn't go over so well. So I'm assuming with this one, will there be a process for those businesses and neighborhood to be involved in the design?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, this is just asking for the money. We'll be going through a
Okay,
total
it's early.
environmental
Process.
document. Yeah, oh, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so we'll work through all those, and in the end, we'll have a project.
One other question, if I could. So I get so confused between the different pots of money. Can you tell me or tell us, explain to us how this is different than what we just talked about at MetroCog? With, I think it was probably earlier years. Is this just further out or?
No,
I
this,
start?
yeah, sure.
So I'm going to just quick start because the urban regional highways through Fargo are a different bucket of money.
Okay.
And so as we turn into a TMA, correct? Then what we negotiated with the DOT is we will stay doing the applications to the state. So the state, this North Dakota DOT will continue to manage the regional highways through town. Those will not come out of the funds that are in Fargo, which was a very positive step for us, is to have them to keep going through the state pot of money.
If I remember, that was a part of the negotiating with the TMA. Yeah, okay.
Okay, so if you look at the map here, so the stuff that you approved a couple weeks ago to a month ago at MetroCog, those are the urban roads program. It'll fall under COG, but that's kind of the penicillin of funding for any projects in town, whether it's an arterial or collector street. So on this map, it could go on any of the streets, as long as they're higher than a local street.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
A second.
Further discussion? Questions? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item 30, recommendation to draft appropriate ordinance to establish parameters for operation of a pedal tour business. Steve Sprague and Nancy Morris to explain.
Good evening again, Mayor and Commissioners. A couple of weeks ago, representatives from the Fargo Pedal Tours made a presentation to the Liquor Control Board. And after that presentation, we had a meeting with them and discussed the possibility of how we move this process forward, and we felt it was appropriate for them to make that presentation here. And so we have Thomas and Dawson from, well, Thomas, you're alone.
He's here. He's present.
He's here, okay. From Fargo Pedal Tours, and at this point, I'll be quiet and let him talk for a while.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Steve. As Steve mentioned, my name is Thomas Strami. Here in attendance with me tonight is Dawson Schefter. We are both Fargo residents and are here to outline quickly the work that we've done to this point and what we hope is going to be a new, fun, first of its kind venture here in Fargo. This idea came myself and Dawson live in the core neighborhoods. My wife and I live on the north side, Dawson and his wife on the south side. And as we've moved into these neighborhoods, we've taken an interest to some of the history that's come of some of the original homeowners. As the neighborhoods have grown, the schools that have come up, the business leaders, some of the civic leaders that have lived in these neighborhoods, and we started to compile this list of stories. And one day, I'm not sure where along the lines, but a light bulb went off of a new experience like this, where we could work to share some of those stories in addition to some other alternative options. But since then, I think had my first phone call with City Auditor Sprague last fall, and have had a series of meetings since then where we've made incremental progress towards understanding, the ins and outs of what this might entail, the feasibility, all of the different, requirements as far as insurance, and you name it. We've looked into it. We've also had meetings with members of the Fargo Police Department recently, with the City Attorney's Office and City Engineering, but also have spoken with many of the organizations around town, such as the Chamber of Commerce, the Downtown Community Partnership, the Convention Visitors Bureau, to see what the appetite is here and if this is something that we think would do well in Fargo. So as I mentioned, I'm just gonna go through a little bit quicker than I did a few weeks ago, and then get to our support of the recommendation you'll be considering tonight. So the bike itself is listed on the screen. It is a passenger-propelled vehicle with 14 seats plus a pedal pilot, who would be the operator and an employee of Fargo Pedal Tours. There are 10 pedaling patrons who would be providing the primary source of power for the pedal bike. And then towards the back there, you can see that last seat is actually over the wheel well, and then there's a bench on the back for 2 additional spots. So 10 pedalers and then 4 non-pedalers for your total of 14. As far as a few just quick safety and specifications go, you can see that each seat is an adjustable height so that everybody has a comfortable pedaling experience. Everybody has a seat back as well as a seat belt. And then the bike itself offers headlights, tail lights, brake lights, running boards, windshield wiper, a number of those pieces that you a braking system. Really, the specifications that you would expect to see in a safe vehicle that would be on our streets. Then, as I mentioned, it would be piloted by an employee of Fargo Pedal Tours, who would be guiding patrons on their tour. As far as the experiences that we plan to offer, you can see on the outside columns, the 2 primary would be public and private rides. Public rides being where you would purchase individual tickets, and then you would meet up with other individuals who had purchased tickets for those rides. Private ride, you book the entire ride. This is an experience that would be a chartered vehicle for hire type vehicle. So there would not be any ability to hop on or hop off halfway through. Tours would start and finish at the same spot, and the same 14 people who begin would finish the tour together. In addition to that, as I kind of mentioned with just some of the Fargo history, we believe that there's some unique offerings that we can include, such as what we have listed there: comedy, Fargo history, some tailgating opportunities perhaps in the fall. But in visiting with others, I think there's a number of ideas that we haven't even really considered yet that we could implement, such as holiday tours and different pieces that could make this a fun experience year-round. Operations of this kind do exist in over 100 cities nationwide. The primary umbrella is the franchise Pedal Pub that most people are familiar with. Pedal Pub Corporate, the headquarters, is based out of Minneapolis and was founded in 2007. They have 75 franchises themselves. We're planning to be an independent operation, and so that we can have some of these additional offerings. But most similarly, Sioux Falls has an operation that was founded in 2014. In preparation, in some of our due diligence, we have had conversations with members of the city of Sioux Falls. I spoke this morning actually with Sioux Falls City Attorney Keith Allenstein about what we're working on and what he thinks as far as the regulations that they see in some other cities. But generally, Attorney Allenstein and a member of the Sioux Falls Police Force was not able to point to any repeat issues of any kind related to their operation. And they actually operate all year round, which is kind of fun, as long as the roads are clear and people are willing to go. If it's a nice day in the winter, the bike will go. So as far as why we're here this evening, we're here because there's a in visiting with we visited with or presented to the Liquor Control Board earlier in February, and at that time we were presenting for the purposes of obtaining a vehicle for hire. We've understood that since then there's some additional specifications and maybe additional ordinances needed in order for us to legally operate, and we're in agreement with some of those guardrails so that we can have some best practices in place. We can operate on the same page so that neither us making an investment or the city in terms of governing safely has any surprises along the way. And so we did outline a few sample ordinances of what that might look like. Certainly look forward to navigating that common ground and finding best practices with members of city staff. But the first step here this evening would be asking for your support of directing the city attorney's office to draft those ordinances. So I think that concludes my comments at the moment. There is a legislative bill that the North Dakota legislature is considering, House Bill 1316, which should provide some more clear legal framework for us to operate. But I will open it up for your questions if you have any, or otherwise turn it back over to City Auditor Sprite.
Any questions by any commissioners? Okay, Nancy, you had comments?
No, I didn't have any specific comments. I just bring to your attention that there are other jurisdictions that do operate on the city streets, and just some of the things to think about that were raised by some of those ordinances are, of course, open containers, speed of the vehicle, impeding traffic, safety issues and concerns, as well as noise issues and concerns. And other than that, it's just wanted to make sure that you're aware of the.
But we presently don't have an ordinance that covers pedal tours. So if it comes to the commission, what we would have to do is shape an ordinance that would allow this.
That's correct.
Okay. Steve, what is your recommendation or question?
Well, the recommendation, if the city commission feels that this isn't a type of an activity that they would like to see operating in the city of Fargo, then to direct the city attorney to draft the necessary ordinances to move forward with this process.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Pipcorn.
Just a couple of quick comments. Could you talk about, so the one thing that I think is good to talk about your hours of operation, and I guess my main thing is the traffic safety. Obviously, if they're going 8 miles an hour, there's some streets where that's just not going to be safe. So, and I think those are things that are addressed in other cities. But to me, that's the safety. But I think for a lot of people, they picture this at downtown. And so can you talk a little bit about the hours? And then for my own benefit, what is the cost? Thank
Sure.
you.
Yeah, appreciate that. Happy to touch on those for you. As far as the hours of operation go, we are planning to operate during daylight hours, and so this is not something that you will see at bar close in downtown Fargo or elsewhere. We plan to conclude our last ride 30 minutes after sunset in order to make sure that we're visible and maintaining that high level of safety. The second question was
the cost.
We're working through that still. I think for a standard ticket on an individual ride, probably about $40-$45, and then it'll be the option to bring your own beverages on top of that for about a 2-hour tour. As far as the routes go, I think I guess I'll mention that was the in between there. We are being cognizant, and that's where we would certainly work with the recommendations of the traffic department to make sure that we're operating on streets that are slower of speed and that passengers, drivers are more aware of just with the additional activities that already happen.
Mr. Preston.
So, Steve, what kind of liquor license will this be?
So they wouldn't necessarily need a liquor license. They wouldn't be selling the alcohol.
Oh, okay. Okay. So it's bring your own.
Mr. Kolpak.
Yeah, I just want to comment. I appreciate the diligence so far, bringing this venture forward, and certainly look forward to reviewing the ordinances once assuming this passes, they come back to the commission.
Just a question is, if you have an ice cream truck go through the neighborhood, makes a certain amount of noise, would your pedal tour be louder than that? Because we do have these noise concerns in the community. What type of noise would there be with the stereo going?
Yeah. So that was a comment that came up in our meeting a couple weeks ago, and we certainly plan to comply with the city's noise ordinances. I understand that they're not all that loud, and so we certainly plan to accommodate and comply with those.
Very good. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Colpack?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item 30,
Thank you.
it should be 31. You have my recommendations for the Arts and Culture Commission. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Can I just add a comment?
Commissioner
I
Colback.
appreciate the process for the interviews. We had a lot of interest to replace this open position that is the result of me no longer being on the Arts and Culture Commission, but certainly have identified future possible candidates for other openings. So thank you to the Planning Commission as well.
Commissioner Strand.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, I'll issue a warning to people wanting to join the Arts and Culture Commission. One of our last people to join that commission ended up sitting right here at the City Commission. So be forewarned, you might get entangled with more work.
Roll call vote.
Colpack?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Nathan Beerbaum, you're going to tell us about the spring flood outlook, and it's, if it keeps snowing, you're going to drive my snowblower to death. What's going to happen here?
Well, on that note, I replaced the carburetor in mine yesterday, so mine was on the death's doorstep. But it's resurrected, so hopefully that means it's done snowing now that it's running good. So yeah, no, I'm here to present to you guys current spring flood outlook, which National Weather Service issued 10 days ago, actually, at this point. They'll be issuing a new one here later this Thursday that we'll probably see a little bit higher numbers than what I'm going to be presenting to you tonight. So first, I thought I'd take the opportunity, like I usually do, to give a quick update on where we are with our in-town projects. This is a map that everyone has seen multiple times over the years. Here it shows that we have constructed 26 miles of levees and flood walls throughout the city. Anywhere you see a color on the map on the right-hand side is where we have been over the past 13, 14 years now at this point. With the construction of all those 26 miles of levees, we have reduced our sandbank count if we had a flood fight similar to 2009 by about 5.5 million. So that's quite a good success there. And then, of course, all the levees and flood walls that have been constructed are built to accommodate the appropriate 37-foot levels through town once the diversion's in place. In addition to all those levees and flood walls, we've also purchased now 259 full property acquisitions since 2009 and a little over 400 since 1990. In addition to that, we also have purchased 120 private property easements. So those easements are in areas where levees or flood walls were able to be constructed behind homes, so we did not have to fully acquire those homes. So we've affected a lot of property owners over the course of the last 14 years. So what have we completed recently? Last year, we were able to wrap up the water treatment plant intake building modifications. So that constructed a line of protection through the intake building that's over by the water treatment plant off of 13th Avenue, as well as elevated some of that critical infrastructure inside that building. We also started the Woodcrest project up north of the VA hospital. There we finished a portion of the levee last summer, completed the lift station there, and then this upcoming summer we're going to complete the levee in that area. This summer we also plan on down at the Hackberry Drive area. We own the last home on Hackberry Drive, so we plan on removing that home and plugging that levee later this summer as well. And then in 24 and 25, we have, two more projects slated. Harwood, we still need to purchase one more property on Harwood. And then in Belmont, there is 2 homes we need to acquire, as well as constructing the levee and flood wall along that stretch that we discussed here a couple months ago. In addition to the levees and flood walls, we are still actively working on replacing a lot of our storm sewer lift stations that have reached the end of their useful life. To date, we have completed 5 lift stations in the last 3-4 years. We have 2 more under construction over off 42nd Street down by 40th Avenue South. And then we have 2 more planned off of 38th Street over by kind of the Fleet Farm area next to the interstate. And then all the remainder ones you see on the map here, we are still scheduled to have those completed by end of 27, which is similar track to the overall diversion project. So now jumping into the spring flood outlook. So here is a slide from the National Weather Service from their latest probabilistic forecast. And the key message at that time was that the risk for significant flooding has increased slightly from the previous one due to some of the recent snowfalls, but still generally remains below or near the long-term historical average for the basin. So we're not looking at any major flood at this point, but still have an elevated flood risk that we still need to monitor and pay attention to the remainder of the winter. So here's another slide of theirs. There's really three major components that go into what the spring flood eventually looks like. First is fall and the fall moisture. Here's a slide that shows in December what our soil moisture was like. And you can see it was very dry. Late summer into the fall, we basically had no moisture at all. So what that means is we froze up very dry, not hardly any moisture in our soils, which is a benefit for what the spring flood may entail for us. Next one is the stream flow. So here we're all green, basically within the valley here, which means that we froze up, or the river froze up right around normal baseline stream flow. So not a large amount of water in the system, but also not very little. So right around the average. So that's the fall. And then winter, frost depth comes into play, as well as snowpack, and then how much water is in that snowpack. Frost depth, I won't go into too much detail, but for the most part, the frost depth is a little bit less than what we typically see at this point of the year, mainly because we receive snow so early in winter. So that's been insulating the ground a little bit. And then the snow water content is what I want to dive a little bit deeper into here. So first, though, is a graph from National Weather Service again here of departure from normal precipitation from October 1st up to late February. And you can see here that for the most part, our region was in that yellow area, which means that from October to end of February, we had below precipitation, which again, our fall was dry, so not too much of a surprise that that was the case. However, so this graph here shows starting in December 1st up to the end of February, how we are looking at for precipitation in terms of the winter months. So here you can see that on the left-hand side, December 12th, or basically the whole month of December, we were pretty wet. You know, we had quite a bit of snow on the ground, quite a bit of moisture at that point. Then January and February was a little bit calmer, and now, of course, recently we've seen a little bit more snow. But historically, though, where we are at today in terms of long-term averages, we're not too far higher amount of water in that snow than what historically we would be at this date. I think this graph shows just a couple tenths over normal precipitation amount. So these next few slides are, want to kind of illustrate to you guys how we were in past floodplains with the amount of water in the snow versus where we were at earlier today. So on your left-hand side is from the National Weather Service's site, the modeled snow water equivalent. So the amount of water that was in the snow in 2009 at the peak point in that winter. And on the right-hand side is our current condition. So you can see on 2009, we were averaged pretty heavily 6 to 10 inches of water the entire basin. So what does our basin look like? This is by no means perfect. This is me just quickly sketching out approximately where our contributing basin or drainage area is upstream of Fargo. So anything within that black boundary is water that eventually gets into the river systems and will go through our city. So you can see, you know, compared 2009 to today, you know, there's a lot more water on the landscape at that point. And of course, 2009, we saw a pretty quick melt, and that's why we had that flood of record actually that year. So then you go to 2010, toggle back in between 9 and 10, you can see a little bit of difference. 2010, there's similar amount of water compared to 2009 on the North Dakota side, but on the Minnesota side, the Lakes country is closer to kind of today. Pretty dry out there, not too much water out there. Go to 2011, 2011, a lot of that water, and there's a little bit more immediately upstream of us along that corridor of the river. 2013 was a very wet year for snow. You can see that there is more snow or more water in that snow than there was in 2009. But you also see that our crest there did not happen until May 1st. It was a very long, drawn out, perfect melt. You couldn't have asked for a better melt there. Of course, meant that we had a very late spring, but in terms of spring flooding, that was a good thing. 2019 was another pretty wet year for us in terms of snow. Again, more than what we have today. But then you look at last year. So here's last year. We have more snow on the ground, or water in that snow on the ground, than last year. Last year, the actual flood crest was just a little over 23 feet. And then we had a follow-up one in May due to the rain that got us closer to that 27-foot level. So that's the amount of water that we have in there today on the snowpack. Of course, so what does the spring have in tail for us? We don't know. That's really going to be the final tell of what we see for spring flooding. This graph here is from the National Weather Service. So on the left-hand side, really want you to concentrate on the black line or the black triangles. Left-hand side, so 75 to 90%. They're saying that we would fall within that level with our river level if we had warmer than normal temperatures for the remainder of the winter, early to normal melt, and below normal precipitation. So there they said if we had that type of weather for the rest of our winter and going into spring, we'd probably fall somewhere under a 25-foot level for the river. Looking at the 25 to 50%, so that middle portion, that's basically if the rest of the winter was average. Average precipitation, average melt, average temperatures, and they're saying we could fall anywhere from that 25 to low 30s number. And then on the right-hand side, greater than 25 or 0 to 25% chance would be if we had a really long, drawn-out spring, delayed melt, and then quite a bit more snow until we saw that melt, and then likely some rain on top of that snow as well. That really accelerated the snow melt. And at that point, they're saying upper end, maybe that 37.5 we could maybe see. And here's kind of a different way of looking at what their current projections were for us 10 days ago. So that 5% chance, they had us right around slightly below a 37-foot level, 25%, 31.5, 50%, 27, and then if we had ideal conditions, looking at those low 20s. Like I said, this was issued 10 days ago. We've obviously experienced pretty heavy snowfall last week, but that was a pretty narrow band. Wasn't basin wide, so that's a good thing. Still will impact our spring flooding, I'm sure, but how much, we'll find out what their numbers are looking like later this week, and we'll continue to monitor.
So Nathan, Welliker was able to predict how high it got with all the scientific data you have now. Do you want to give me a number?
I'm not in the guessing game.
Any questions, Mr. Strand?
Thank you, Nathan. And, I'm reminded of sage advice of my mother, who went through lots of years. And she'd always refer back to March's blizzards and heavy precipitation, mostly blizzard events in March. And she'd name the year and she'd name the flood that followed. It was just like clockwork. My concern is, those of us who went through the 97 flood, we got hit mid-late April with the crest. But we had a storm beginning the month off for all of us, the ice storm and the heavy precipitation, so that just really compounded it. Then we get to 97, the big flood in 97. By the 28th of March, we were at a crest, but our next meeting is March 20th. That's my concern, is being able to be nimble and to be reacting, and I know you all are, and you probably pay immense attention to these details. And then I'm looking at the weather now. We skirted the storm last night, but our basin got precipitation. The weather I saw last I looked, it's a week or more before we're looking at thaws. Growing up on the farm, when you see fields frozen and culverts plugged and rivers not open, and then all of a sudden you get a 70-degree day, we're in trouble, potentially. That's my concern, is the longer we get down this path, with, if we have more precipitation hit, which we may, and if we have a delayed thaw, and we have all of a sudden just this weather hit hard, then it's on us. So I appreciate this report a lot. It's good for all of us to be paying attention, especially these next few weeks. What's happening with the weather and the temperatures and precipitations and so on. And it's good we're more protected than we ever have been in our history.
Yeah, so that's what that says. So today they have our 5% chance at less than 37 feet. So the good news of us being able to complete those 26 miles of levees and flood walls to allow us to safely pass 37 feet through town when diversion is completed is that we're almost there. We're really close. That, right now they're saying worst case, large amount of precipitation, quick melt, potentially see a 37-foot flood. 37-foot flood is a very manageable flood fight for us today, to the point where we might not even need any emergency measures. We might just be in a position where we are monitoring a lot of areas. We'd still have, a lot of work to do to make sure that we're appropriately monitored. Public Works Department would be very busy installing our removable flood walls, manning our lift stations. We'd still be looking at a lot of water passing through our community. But luckily, with the amount that we've been able to get accomplished here in the last 14 years, it's put us in a lot better position than we were 14 years ago. And of course, we'll continue to monitor because you are right. I mean, there is still a lot of winter left, and there's a lot of uncertainty, so we need to make sure that we're being very proactive and watching how things are progressing.
And the ability to make sandbags is much better. You'd only have to do 100,000 a day, 5 days to get $500 million.
Yeah, so I looked at some numbers prior to tonight's meeting anticipating this type of question. So if we had a flood fight similar to our 2009 flood fight, so right around a 41-foot crest, we'd probably need about 500,000 sandbags for that type of a flood fight. Whereas compared to 2009, it was over 6 million sandbags at that point. So it's something that we still need to be paying a lot of attention to, but in order to get up to a 41-foot level, I think a lot has to go wrong for us.
Any other questions? Good report, excellent, putting all the
I-
different things together, Nathan, appreciate it. Commissioner Strand.
Bear with me, I have one more question. Just so in case that starts to go the wrong direction, what would we anticipate? How would we be calling emergency meetings, or I'm just curious what would unfold?
Nathan would come back with a probability idea of where it's at, those things would change, and we'd have emergency commission meeting, John, declare an emergency.
Okay.
Legislative update, Michael Redlinger.
Good evening, Commissioners. I just have a brief report this evening. I forwarded a rather lengthy email on Saturday to you just with some of the bills that we're tracking that the North Dakota League of Cities is tracking as well. So I just have a couple of items. I noted in that email that we are entering the last 4 weeks of committee work in both houses. And so our conference committees are still going to hopefully convene here in early April. And we look forward to seeing where some of these bills move forward and to see what our next steps look like. So some bill hearings were also delayed last week just due to the weather event that occurred in Bismarck. And so some of those bills are going to be rescheduled this week. But I just want to highlight a couple of matters for you this evening. I provided a printout of some testimony for Senate Bill 2391. That is regarding the Renaissance Zone program and some updates to that program. Nicole, Jim Gilmore, and Eric Johnson worked together on this one. We've actually been working with the Commerce Department as well in a friendly manner to try help improve some language that's in that bill, just to make sure there's no negative impact to the program. That's a critically important program for Fargo and for other communities that have used the RZ program over the years. And so we certainly want to help where we can since we're such a key player in that space. And then also, occurring this week, we have some ND-PERS bills that are up. The league talked about this in their call on Friday as well. We provided previous testimony in opposition to House Bill 1040 that sunsets the the defined benefit plan and replaces it with a defined contribution plan. And then we've also testified in support of Senate Bill 2239, which retains the plan but increases employer and employee contributions. And so we're going to be watching the PERS bills this year. And then we're also watching and waiting, of course, on House Bill 1273. I noticed to the commission over the weekend that that bill was actually moved on the Senate side out of the Judiciary Committee. and moved into the State and Local Government Committee. I just want to highlight, we actually have 3 members from Fargo, West Fargo, that are on that committee. Senator Kristen Roars from Fargo, Senator Ryan Braunberger from Fargo, and Senator Judy Lee from West Fargo all sit on that Senate State and Local Government Committee. Nancy and I were exchanging some messages today, just taking a look at another question that she was talking through with Stephanie at the League of Cities. So we'll look at our testimony, see if we want to add to that before that would come before the Senate. So just want to leave it at that tonight. Happy to answer any questions. We'll continue to monitor for you. And now that the league has reconvened its Friday phone calls, we expect those calls will continue through the duration of the session, however long that session will last this year. So we will continue to provide timely updates on Friday nights and Saturdays about where we stand with bills in both houses. So we'll leave it at that. And I understand you have another matter to discuss after this. So.
Questions of Mike? Commissioner Preston.
So I would like to follow up on some of the conversation that we had when the lobbyist was here and the strategies going forward with a few issues. One of them certainly being the library bills and those numbers, 1205 and 2360. I would hope that we would be putting full force effort into stopping those. So whether, and I have some motions ready, but whether we direct real clearly that we engage the lobbyist with those, as well as the local control bills, which there were 2 of them, 2360, I'm sorry. The 2 local control bills, the gun sales bill and then the approval voting bill. So I would speak in favor of making sure that we have the lobbyist working behind the scenes, working with individual lawmakers that may be open to opposing all 4 bills, and that we clearly state from the city commission level that we are in strong opposition to those 4. So I can certainly present some motions, or we can open it for a little bit more discussion.
Commissioner Kolpak, any ideas on those, or we already have instructed our lobbyists to do these things, right?
Well, we have agreed that local control issues are issues that, in general, we're supporting. So depending on the motion you would entertain here or what your thoughts are, I think we have been strong, and certainly, Michael, you can speak to that in the weekly calls about the strong opposition to losing local control on those issues.
Yes, I would add that certainly is the case. Certainly the commission's prerogative. If you wish to add your voice to the library bills, the library board has weighed in on those matters previously. If you'd like to amplify that with testimony of your own, or to add your voice of support in a brief statement, for example, behind that, that would certainly be the prerogative of the commission if you direct us to do that.
Can I ask one more question? So the involvement of the lobbyist, because I think these 2 sets of bills are important enough that we try to avoid them up front instead of trying to deal with them once they're passed. So putting our full force into this, including using the lobbyist to lobby individual legislators on the backside. So I can certainly put it into motion if you would like. Would that be more clear?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I think we're doing that right now. We're full in force. Tim Dirks has been oftentimes spokesperson for that. He's been on public news waves and on radio explaining to our position. Our lobbyist is firmly strong in that position, and we would hate to have any of our librarians arrested for giving books out. So I think it's very firm that we oppose what's going on in the library area. On the other 2 bills, last time they had the gun support bill, we were successful in the courts. And then on the The other bills, we've had our lobbyists heavily instructed to instruct the people. I would remind you that in Cass County, many of our legislative people are supporting the transgender bills. So we have 30 people that are around our area that are not really reflecting what many of the population feels.
Mr. Chairman, and the transgender bills, I think, will be talked about in a little bit here.
Yep.
I would beg to differ in that our lobbyists didn't seem to even know much about the library bill. So I asked for the motions to be displayed. I would like to put this into a motion form so that we make sure that the lobbyist is engaged here. The motion is to direct the mayor to submit on behalf of the city commission written and/or verbal testimony to the appropriate committees and to the entire Cache County legislative delegation voicing opposition to 2360 and 1205 relating to censorship of books and materials available to consumers of public libraries.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
I guess to me,
Peppercorn.
I don't know that much about either of the bills as far as the wording, so I apologize for that. But I mean, I would like to know exactly what we're voting on. So I guess that's my responsibility. But I don't know what the bills contain. And so I guess to me, I would be very concerned if there was books in the children's section part of the library that are adult based. To me, something like that's appropriate. But I guess that's my concern.
Mike, do you have the two bills?
I would be happy to forward those. I do have them. I can email them right now.
Or Nancy, can you summarize what the two bills are? Or Denise, do you know?
I don't have.
No.
So I guess to me, Mr. Chair, we have to know what we're voting on. That's very important. So I could oppose them, but I need to know what's in them. So,
Mr. Chairman, the director of the library, Tim Dirks, is here. I'm sure that he can give a short little description. But let me also say that, and I can't remember which one it is, but one of them will possibly require staff to go through every piece of material inside the library to determine whether it meets the law or not. And the estimates, and these are certainly estimates, but thinking that might cost up to 19 million to actually accomplish that. And there's a projection that perhaps the library may have to close down to be able to meet the time frame in that bill in order to accomplish that task. It's an absolute ridiculous requirement for the library.
so Mr. Chair, and so I'm glad you're here, Tim, because I guess my first question is, we have a children's section of our library. Do you have a way where obviously there's some things that aren't appropriate? Do you do that now?
I would say that with our current collection development policy, it addresses that, and in a lot of ways, though, serving the broad community, we have an access to materials policy that basically says we don't act in local parentis. We want to empower parents to have those discussions in regards to their worldview and how they think is appropriate or inappropriate. We work to represent the whole community. And I think for us to be successful, the parents need to have those conversations. I would say to Commissioner Preston's comments, yeah, we have in our collection about 319,000 items that would be impacted potentially by this language. And as the language is right now, it is extremely broad. And for us to vet that collection would be extraordinary. And the date frame based on the current language is May of 2024. And again, as Commissioner Preston said, that there is a Class B misdemeanor attached to that. And myself as the director, I would be the first one up in terms of the Class B misdemeanor. I just think the language is overly broad. And also it is, especially with 1205, it is a local control issue. It essentially takes collection development out of the control of the appointed library board, of hired staff, and that we have to report back to the state in terms of that we have the proper items in a collection, in a public library that's trying to represent the whole community. So it's troubling on many levels in terms of First Amendment. It is troubling in terms of just the implementation of it is not addressed. The impacts on staff, Commissioner Preston was not exaggerating. For us to vet that entire collection, we would have to close down for a period of time to do that. And where instead of serving the public, we're chasing language, which I don't think is a good, certainly not a good expenditure of taxpayers' money in terms of that. So I would urge the commission to really look at this and the impacts on local control in terms of this legislation, First Amendment, impacts on the library, and impacts on the consumers of library services in this community. So that's my thought.
So Tim, can you tell the difference between the 2360 and the 1205?
1205 is more directed towards physical materials. 2360 is really going a little bit on that, but more on electronic content. Now, and, you know, electronic resources. Now, obviously, we already filter in terms of public internet to a certain degree as much as it can function. And again, the 2360 puts in the Class B misdemeanor. And in the vagaries of technology, it's always very possible, regardless of whatever things that you set up, that there is a possibility somebody could access something that's inappropriate. See, that's what's most troubling. So that's the major difference there.
And I would just add, so I looked up 1205, it looks like that was referred over to the Senate Judiciary Committee on February 20, and 2360 was referred to the Judiciary Committee in the House on February 21. So no further actions planned at this point, but those will be scheduled, those will be heard.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Commissioner Preston.
So both of those judiciary committees, the House side and the Senate side, have already passed one or the other. So the likelihood of them passing the other one is probably pretty high.
Mr. Strand.
Thank you. Commissioner Preston, I want to thank you for putting this on the front burner. This is a really important issue. Who would ever think that a library board would be contentious? Or that, if any of you have ever been to our library board, you really, if you haven't, you should go there. They're just bookworms. They're people that they're geeks. They love libraries. They're the most innocent people in the world. They're just so intellectually driven. And to have something like this come at them and to expect them to politically react and to respond and to lead, it's on us to stand with them and support them and support. We built a new library in this city. We believe so much in it. You know, it's just beyond my comprehension. I'm sure as a director of a library, you never envisioned in your career, maybe you did, that you'd have a battle like this on your hands.
It's after 15 years, this is the first time I really run into something like this.
And hopefully the last. In a sense that we resolve it so it doesn't keep coming back.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
No.
Mahoney?
Aye. You have
Mr.
another
Chairman, I
motion?
have one other one, and that's relating to more of the local control issues. I think that was the right motion, whoever put that up. Again, it's submitting on behalf of the Fargo City Commission written or verbal testimony to the appropriate Senate committee members and to all the Cass County senators voicing strong opposition to the legislation relating to local control, which include 1273, which is prohibiting the approval voting, which was passed by a public vote here, and House Bill 1340, which prohibits municipalities' ability from fully exercising the zoning authority. That's the gun sales issue in neighborhoods. And to direct the city lobbyists to engage in working with individual legislators to defeat the bill.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, Commissioner Pepcorn.
I have a problem with this because these are two separate bills, so we should be voting on them separately. To give you an example, I support our zoning rights, but I don't support the approval voting. And so for us to start going through all these bills and plus combining them together, that's not appropriate. That's just my opinion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Could suggest we split the motion.
Yep, that'd be fine.
We could split the motion and vote on each one separately. You made the motion. Is that acceptable to you?
Yep.
And Commissioner Strand, is that acceptable to you as a seconder?
It is.
Further discussion?
Yeah, if
Commissioner
I may,
Kolpak.
I do think behind the scenes, working with the lobbyists, that this work is being done. So I just want to park that along with city administration and looking at the current list of priorities. So, I certainly will be voting on these as well from a public perspective, but there's a lot of work going on into the second half of the session that, is affecting some of these bills. So those are my comments.
Mr. Chair, just one more comment. So the reason I'm going to oppose the approval voting is we are the only entity that does approval voting. When you look on the ballot, all the federal, all the state, all the other local voting is not approval voting. So it's confusing to the voters. And on top of that, I don't believe it's delivered. It was promised to solve some type of problem. I don't believe it has had an impact on our local votes. And so that's why I oppose it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So the first motion, to make clarity, we'll be voting on is the summation of the verbiage will be there acceptably to include House Bill 11273, just on approval voting first. The zoning issue would not be part of that motion.
Mayor,
Mr. Strand.
if I recall, nearly 34,000 people voted for it in November of 2018. Approval voting. I mean, it is no longer what I think or what you think or what anybody else thinks. It's, do we support the vote of the people and the voice of the majority, a strong majority? And or do we want to once in a while be willy-nilly and sometimes support local control and sometimes not? I don't, this isn't about where I stood or you stood on this, Commissioner Pepcorn. It's where do the people stand? And do we stand with the people?
Mr. Chair,
Pepcorn.
I believe the majority of people didn't realize what they were voting on when this was brought up. And I think if you look at the impact of the votes, basically most people voted for two candidates in the last election. So it's all good. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
No.
Mahoney?
Aye. Second part of the motion was gun motion, the zoning on it. Don't take it down, please. So the second one prohibits municipalities from fully exercising zoning authority. Any discussion on that? Roll call vote.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. Any other business in regards to legislative issues? Then we are on to item 34. Recommend to join Governor Burgum, the Chamber, and others to grow the city's workforce. Commissioner Strand to explain.
The topics that led to a room full of people tonight that really always don't find it easy to go out in public and stand up for things when they're in a targeted, marginalized, potentially at-risk group. The courage of folks showing up to tell us this is important in their lives. We need to honor them and their message to us. The last few meetings, the issues of human rights have surfaced, and I'm not sure we've landed on solid ground to have a consistent message that says where we in Fargo stand. And I believe that's important, that we stand with our people. The topics going across the state at the legislature over in Bismarck with regards to, especially with the 20-some bills targeting trans people, is just beyond comprehension. There's 380 some or so bills across the country. 20 some of them are in North Dakota. And it's almost more, anyway, it's just, so there's a frustration of how do we without shooting ourselves in the foot, stand firm for our values? How do we stand for those who maybe don't have a voice? How do we stand with and alongside those who've chosen to move here or stay here and make their careers and their lives and their families here? And you can really get caught up in the weeds with the aspects of this discussion, but where I end up, bottom line, is in one all-encompassing balcony view that says these are workforce issues. If people want to work here, if they want to have jobs here, if they want to have careers here, if they want to go forward here, these are workforce issues. All of these topics will affect people's choices, whether North Dakota or Fargo is in their future or present. You know, so the governor has made it very clear that there probably is, in his estimation, no higher value or no higher greater need than our workforce shortage. We have, some say, as many as 40,000 openings. He says now 30,000. And they also declare that for if you say you have 30,000, there's way more than that. You know, the Chamber of Commerce has spoken up. 2 years ago, the CVB and the Chamber spoke up strongly about the narrow trans bills presenting the legislature then, and they made it really clear. I think they led very strongly or very well in the messaging that don't do this to our people, don't do this to our economy, don't do this to our community, don't harm us, because there will be unintended consequences to your actions which will unfold. The Human Rights Commission on February 6th came up with a unanimous message that this whole spectrum of bills are just plain doing harm and going to do harm and are going to hurt people. Just like with the library board, I believe we need to stand with our Human Rights Commission. I believe we should stand with the governor. I think we should embrace the message of our Chamber of Commerce locally, that the bills, many of these anti-trans human rights bills are to our detriment in light of the thousands of openings we have that we need people to move here to fill. So I'll keep it simple at that level, but I've presented a motion and I'll read the motion. The City of Fargo joins Governor Burgum, the Fargo-Moorhead West Fargo Chamber of Commerce, and many others in this call to urgently and successfully grow our workforce. Further, we join the Human Rights Commission opposing legislation targeting marginalized and at-risk community members, thereby narrowing our pool of people otherwise available to fill our thousands of vacant jobs in North Dakota.
Is there a second?
A second.
Further discussion? Commissioner Preston?
Mr. Chairman, I was just real glad to see that the chamber had actually come out and made a statement. So that was really good to see. Thank you.
I think this powers the fact the city of Fargo is an embracing community, John, and we've worked hard to get workforce in our community. Public night speaking, it's good to hear from people actually stand up and speak. I agree with you 100%, because oftentimes people do not feel they can stand up and speak. Our community is a community that has grown 20% in the last 10 years. Opportunity for workforce is people want to come in our community, live, work, play, do all the things they want to do. This is a strong support the city of Fargo has for the people we want in our community. Talented, wonderful people, want to raise a family, want to do things. And this is an important statement the city of Fargo has to make, is that we will stand for people and stand for them coming into our community. I would support this motion. Roll call vote.
Strand. Kolpak.
Aye.
Pepcorn.
No.
Preston.
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. Liaison Commissioner assignment updates, starting with John Stratt.
Nothing to report, Mayor.
Commissioner Kolpak.
Yeah, I just have two slides, but and a comment at the end. The first is I didn't mention the new appointment to the Arts and Culture. We didn't say her name. Anna Johnson is the new appointee to the Arts and Culture Commission, so congratulations to her. So my first slide is on water treatment. one of my portfolio assignments, of course, and one of my 5 major departments that I get to work with. So there's going to be a surface water treatment workshop in April of 18 through 20 in Fargo. It's held every 2 years in the city, and it includes North Dakota, Minnesota, South Dakota, and their memberships to the American Water Works Association. And most larger cities rely on surface water treatment for their drinking water, and this conference allows their collaboration to learn from one another. Fargo Water Utility have several staff who will be attending the workshop to learn from other water professionals in the region, and they'll be presenting during the workshop on technical water treatments. The next is on the Fargo Youth Initiative. There's a February 11th kind of a summary of that meeting that was held at the city library. And from that discussion, and Commissioner Strand also attended that meeting with me, the recommendation of Abhijina Kavasari will be the new member to serve on the Resiliency and Sustainability Committee. We also had a really robust discussion related to the development of a new youth ambassador mentorship program, not only working with the city and the school system, but also looking at perhaps colleges. So more to come there. Several meetings behind the scenes that are going to happen in the next couple months. We reviewed a subcommittee project related to Black History Month and youth mental health screenings, and brainstormed more communications and marketing plans for how they're going to be recruiting members to the youth initiative this spring. And the next meeting is actually scheduled towards the end of March for that initiative. And the last thing I want to say, and I know 2 of these are outside of my portfolio, Mayor, but I just want to give a big thank you to the Public Works Department, the Fire and Police Departments, and the Communication and Government Affairs teams for their work during the snow event last week. So thank you all very much.
And on that, I got another question about snow gates, and Ben tells me it was too much snow for snow gates, so we couldn't have done it. So the only blessing about the snow was light, so it wasn't as hard to clear from the driveway. Nothing to report from me at this time. Commissioner Preston.
So tonight on the consent agenda, we approved moving forward with a new software called Credible Mind platform. And coming through the health department, it will be basically a system that will be available to anyone who wants to use it in the public. Especially since COVID, we've seen an increase in the incidence of anxiety and mental health issues out in the community. So this would be a program to provide access to or information about resources. So it's kind of a self-help kind of platform, which will be real exciting. And grant dollars were available to fund it. So hopefully we will be seeing that out in the public fairly soon. Secondly, the first Food Commission video, there were, I think, 5 of them that have been taped, and one of them is on pollinators. And I just want to call out Ben at Public Works, and I got this information actually from Becky, that Public Works have multiple projects planned for pollinator gardens within the city and the Park District properties. Unfortunately, ran out of time and contractors last year, but as soon as the snow melts, we'll be starting that up again. So that's exciting. And that comes from partially, well, at least the Food Commission has been real active in trying to encourage pollinators. So.
Commissioner Pipcorn. Okay, any other business? Mr. Strand.
Did I hear Commissioner Kolpak already mention with the Arts Commission another candidate for City Commission with Anna Johnson? Same
That's
Anna
not what I
Johnson?
said.
He already ran once, John, yes.
See, there's a pattern here.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.